hopefully educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed in these radio programs are those of the individual hosts and do not reflect the official policy or position of Universal Broadcasting Network. Welcome to the National Safe Child Show, addressing the health, welfare, and safety of all children nationwide, because it shouldn't hurt to be a child. Here are your hosts, Tammy Stefano and Priscilla Perez.
Hi, everybody. We have an awesome guest today, and we have an awesome show. We've been waiting, anticipating Jackson Katz.
I'm so excited.
Yes,
So
our
excited.
hero. And he'll be on with us today, and he's going to talk about some issues that every man needs to be talking about. Every man that cares about relationships, about society, about community, about morals.
About people, morals,
Yeah.
values.
Yes.
This is the man. And for
Yes.
all the men out there who have not listened to our show and you're new, this is the show to listen to, because I really admire him for really being vocal and I love him.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do. I do.
We love you. We love you. This is great. There are a couple of things that we want to touch on briefly. So, the government shutdown, I guess they're in the midst, just to let everybody know. We always like to touch a little bit on politics, right? So, there is some discussion as of this morning that they may be able to finalize and pass legislation before the United States authority expires. So, Majority Leader Harry Reid, Democrat from Nevada, unveiled a plan today that will fund the government through at least January 15th. So, let's see what happens. Okay, and so Jackson Katz, before he comes on, there are a couple of things that we do want to touch base on. Some of the issues that he covers: domestic violence, child sexual abuse, neglect, society, women. It's a man's issue, Jackson says, not a women's issue. And I don't mean to say that women are not participants or women are not sometimes responsible, because we know, I mean, the door swings both ways. But it has become, when it comes to domestic violence and battering, it has predominantly, all of the focus has been on the battered woman. And so he's going to explain that.
Yes, they always try to put the woman as if though, yes, she is a victim, but let's not leave the abuser or perpetrator out of the picture. It's time to start pointing the finger at the person who has committed the crime.
That's right.
And that's what I love about Jackson Katz. When I saw him on TED Talks regarding his, what was it called? It's a Man's Issue.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I really admire him, and the circle of men and the peer pressures of, when men are together in a circle and how they degrade women. It's like, don't put women down. Why not be the voice within that peer group to say, you know what, I'm sorry, but that's just not right.
That's right.
And so I really admire him for that, and I just can't wait to get him on the phone.
Yeah.
And
he's going to be calling in. He was coming out of a meeting.
Oh, okay.
He almost had to cancel at one point, so we are excited that he's coming on at all. So let's see. We can cover some of the things. First of all, let's talk about, for a brief moment, our new Facebook site.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The National Safe Child Show.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And then you guys can also email us at the National NSC at Yahoo.
No, NS.
I forgot what it was.
NSC Show.
NSC Show.
At yahoo.com. So the reason why we've established both the NSC Show Facebook page as well as the National Safe Child page on Facebook is because we want all of the attention to go to Facebook right now. We want people to start communicating. We want to see people's opinions not only when we're on the show, and not so much through the different organizations that we run, but specifically on this Facebook page, because we've gotten so much, so many emails through our individual organizations, and it has,
and it's just growing and growing. I mean, in the past, just one day we had 100, how many? Over 100.
Yeah, 150.
Right.
I think it was about 140, yeah.
And that's, we just went up.
Yeah, exactly. It was within hours. So we want you to utilize this Facebook page because we want you to, number one, be able to let us know if there is a show, a topic that you want us to cover. We are concerned, as you all know, with a variety of issues. Anything that ultimately affects children, we're concerned with. We want to combat. We've made some great connections this week. Number one, we want to give a shout out to William Lynch, who runs RISE, RISE.org, I believe it is. He's a survivor of clergy abuse, and we're going to have William on the show in the next month and a half. We're looking at the schedule because this is really, really important.
We've got a lot of people on the chat roll already.
Yeah, that's great.
And regarding the Facebook page, we want people to email us about the topics that you want us to talk about. But also, there are a lot of cases that come through, and people have been personally emailing us. But if there's something that you want us to let others know, or if there's even advocates out there that don't know about bills that are either going through, or that with SB 131, with what happened with that. It's a way to spread awareness, educate each other, because there's things that I don't know. There's things that Tammy may not know that, someone in Texas or Florida may know. And
That's right.
Those are things that we just want to unite as a nation, to make sure that, that this avenue that we have at the moment, which UBN has been so gracious to allow us to spread awareness through here at the National Safe Child Show, we want to make sure that we unite everyone. And if there's something that I can help you with, something that you can help me with, then it's only going to further the movement. So just email us at on our Facebook page, and if there are any questions, like I said before, or any cases that come forward, then you can definitely reach us through our Facebook page. And I just can't wait to hear from you guys.
That's right. We really need for you to, let me give John this. We really need for you to reach out to us. We need, during the time when we're getting our guests on, we need to know what you're feeling. This is all for the audience. It's all for the communities out there to know what's going on, and for us to be able to really make a stand, to take a stand. It's going to take one voice from so many people. We have stepped up in so many ways where a lot of other people haven't. And we don't mind being leaders, because that's just what we're made of. Right. But we certainly don't want to walk alone. And we would love to have everybody walking on the side of us. That's the
together.
point. Yeah, holding
together.
hands and walking together. So we are putting our intention out there that we really get a lot of followers, and not followers for us, but followers for this movement, followers for the children, followers for this cause, because it is so important and it is affecting society, folks. And while we have government shutdowns, and while we have unemployment rates so high, and while we don't eat the same meals anymore because we just can't afford it, and the prices of meat are going up, and the rents are going up, and gas is at an extreme high, and people are biking it more, they're eating less, they're not buying organic like they know that they should be. Why? Because they can't afford it. I mean, we are really under the gun. And while all this is happening, please remember this: $500 to $750 billion every year, not over a 10-year period, but every year, is taken from tax-paying dollars as a result of us not addressing child abuse. $500 to $750 billion through a lifespan, folks, every year. So if you want to eat better, if you want to return to organic freely and comfortably, let's combat something. And guess what? While we're doing that, we're making society better. We are bringing back the ethics that we once lived by, that this country was founded on. And it's really, really important that we remember that this has been going on a long time. This situation, child sexual abuse, child abuse, it's been swept under the carpet for, the last 40 years or so. And it's time now to just say no more. It's time to...
Enough is enough.
Yeah, enough is enough. Be bold. Get bold, folks. It's time. Look at our ads. I mean, we've got half-nude ads. I remember when bitch, excuse the language, was something that was not allowed on television. I remember television stations being sanctioned for saying bitch. Now, I mean, we're on the verge of the F word, and this is on public TV. So, folks, get bold with this subject, because this subject is really...
And it's something that should matter to everyone. Yeah. It's our children. It's the future of this country. And how can you not care? To me, it still amazes me. And even though we're not surprised all the time of the issues that come on board, I just can't believe that people don't care enough to want to make change.
I think Jackson's on. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay. I'd rather have him talking.
Hi, Jackson. Are you with us?
I am. Is this Tammy?
This is. Hi, Jackson.
Hi, Jackson.
Hi.
Okay, we've got your picture up, your handsome picture.
Very handsome
picture.
picture.
Thank you so much. We were anticipating, as well as our listeners, everybody's emailing us, and we're saying, we said that you were a little tied up, but you weren't going to let us down. How are you today?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
We're doing
We're doing great.
We want to jump right into to listening to you. We want to start off by thanking you for being here with us, and we really honor your work.
And we're truly grateful that you joined us today.
And that you're doing what you're doing.
Sure.
Dr. Katz,
Thank
if you could do me a favor and just elaborate a little bit more so our listeners know a little bit of your background.
Yes.
Sure. I'm a longtime educator. The area that I'm spent most of my work is in preventing men's violence against women and children and other men. I run programs in schools, in the U.S. military, and the Australian military, and the sports culture. I'm the co-founder of the Mentors in Violence Prevention Program, which is the first large-scale attempt to enlist high school, collegiate, and professional athletes in the fight against sexual and domestic violence. And MVP is the first bystander program in the field of sexual assault and domestic violence prevention. And the bystander approach, which I'm one of the architects of, has become now the mainstream of the fields of prevention in education and sports culture and military culture. I write books. My first book is called The Macho Paradox: Why Some Men Hurt Women and How All Men Can Help. I make films, educational films, with the ways that media representations of masculinity and masculinities help to shape social norms around men's identities, especially as it relates to violence towards others and ourselves. And I speak all over the world, constantly giving talks, lectures, and trainings, and multiracial, multinational contexts everywhere.
Wow.
And
that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
This is great. We want to jump into everybody. I mean, we put it out there, your TED Talk presentation. I mean, if that didn't melt the heart of not only women, but men.
Yes.
I mean, it really, you said it straight. And I want to just say, Jackson, if it's okay, if I can say where you're from.
Sure.
Jackson is.
I mean, from originally?
Yeah.
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 I'm from Boston.
Yeah. Jackson is an East
I'm
Coaster.
in the Los Angeles area. Yeah, I'm an East Coaster, but I live in the Los Angeles area.
Right, but I'm going to focus because I'm an East Coaster. I'm going to focus on the East Coast. Actually, my sister owned a place in Marblehead, and Jackson was very well known. Jackson, I didn't actually share this with you, but a lot of Massachusetts folks are listening today because the buzz went around Mass that Jackson was going to be on. And my sister now has a restaurant in Acton, a vegan restaurant, and she's just gotten the word out. So lots of people. I think you're originally from Swampscott, are you not?
I am originally, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So very cool. Wow. So you have the East Coast folks listening. So this is nice. A blast, yeah. So, okay, TED Talk. Let's listen to you now. Tell us about TED Talk and the impact that it had, and even remind the listeners who haven't had a chance what direction you were going.
Sure. I just, about a year ago, it was in November of 2012, I did a TED Talk in San Francisco. It was technically a TEDx Women Talk, and it was called Violence and Silence, and it was just a 19-minute.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Oh.
What's that?
Oh,
no, go ahead. We lost you for a minute. I don't know if
the basic premise of the talk was that violence against women is really a men's issue, and that the way that we even think about and talk about the issues of domestic and sexual violence often push our attention off of men, force our attention off of men and boys, and puts it onto girls and women. So, for example, we use the passive voice all the time. We say how many women are raped rather than how many men raped women. We say how many girls were harassed or abused rather than how many boys harassed or abused girls. Or even the term violence against women is a passive construction. Linguistically, nobody's doing it. Violence against women is something bad happening to women, but nobody's really doing it to them. So all of these linguistic devices or ways that we think and talk about the subject keep reinforcing the idea that these are women's issues and women's concerns, and meanwhile men are the ones doing the vast majority of the violence, and most men are not violent, but the vast majority of violence is done by men. And my talk was about this, and also about why about the silence in male culture around these issues, and so few men have been leaders and distinguished themselves as leaders on this subject. And so it's left to women, and women have been incredible leaders in a multicultural sense here in the U.S. and all over the world in speaking out about these problems and creating services for victims and survivors. And this is also true, by the way, of child sexual abuse. Women have been at the forefront of all of the movements to provide services to victims and survivors, to change the laws and cultural practices that support it. But where are the men? And obviously there are men doing the work, but nowhere near the critical mass. So my talk was devoted to discussing that and talking about how we need to break our silence. And when I say our silence, I mean the vast majority of men who are not abusive, but we don't challenge other men, we don't interrupt other men when they're being sexist or acting out in ways that perpetuate this unfair system and such. And I shared briefly the bystander approach that I referenced a few moments ago, which is to say, when you're a guy and you're in a peer culture and you yourself aren't acting in harassing or abusive ways towards girls or women or towards other men and boys, but you don't say anything when your friends are acting that way, like if you don't interrupt them or challenge them or say, hey man, the way you're talking to your girlfriend or the way you're talking about women is just uncool, or I don't appreciate it. If you don't say that, then in a sense your silence is a form of consent and complicity in his abusive behavior or some of the attitudes that he's reinforcing, and we need to break that silence. We need to now figure out ways for guys to stop, instead of walking away or pretending we didn't hear something or laughing along. We need guys to start saying, hey, come on, this is not okay. And that's one of the ways, not the only way, but one of the ways we're going to change social norms in male peer cultures, large and small, that make it unacceptable for abusive behavior to go on, because the vast majority, by the way, of abusive behavior, and I'm using the word abusive behavior in broad terms, but
Right.
Most of it's preventable. I mean, it's not all preventable, and there are some individuals who are really deeply disturbed and sociopathic, but the vast majority of men, for example, who commit microaggressions and even up through significant violence against women, they're not abnormal. They're not psychologically disturbed. Of course, there are some individuals who are, but the vast majority are not, and therefore they are subject to peer pressure and accountability and social norms, and they want the approval of their fellow men. They want to make it in the world. They want to be acceptable and accepted. And what's been missing is the cultural sort of message to them, like I said, at all levels of male peer culture and more general peer cultures and political cultures and such, that this behavior is not consistent. When you're acting out abusively, your behavior is not consistent with the values and the norms that we expect of men in this society, or of women.
That's right.
And you need to get in line.
There was a judge. You're speaking about this. There was a judge who is under fire for sentencing a 54-year-old former teacher. I don't know if you heard about. I'm sure you did hear about this story. To 30 days in jail for raping the 14-year-old. And his response publicly just was so appalling. He basically said that she's old enough to consent. She was 14 years old. And the teacher was, I don't know. He was an older man. And he later then tried to brush it over when he got so much
media. There was so much media and publicity
and
on this
rightfully
case.
so. The girl... eventually, when the case was going to criminal court, because this guy who raped her got 30 days, and she committed suicide. She took her own life because I'm sure she must have thought, there's no justice here. I was raped.
Well, we teach our children, speak. If someone does something to you, come to us. We will help you. And to let a child down, I mean...
Not only to let her down.
You're letting every child down. And, I mean, this little girl literally was lost. And she thought that she was,
she was going to have justice.
30 days in jail.
The judge spoke on behalf of all of the violent offenders, really. He was on the side of the violent offenders. And this is really what you're talking about, that men need to step up. He justified that type of behavior, in my mind. What do you think? Of course. Are you familiar with the case? I should ask you first.
I am, yeah. I am. I mean, it's one of those, that come to public light fairly regularly, where men, whether it's in this case a judge or other powerful men, make incredibly bad decisions or decisions that clearly indicate that they're in sync with some of the old thinking that has gotten us in the current predicament. Which is, defending the perpetrator essentially, even though he wouldn't see himself as doing that.
Right.
As kind of taking the side of the perpetrator. I mean, the old paradigm is blame the victim, right? The old paradigm, and I talked about this in my TED Talk as well, but the old paradigm is there's something that women are doing to call this behavior from men on them. It's something about their way that they're dressing or acting sexy or sexually provocative or whatever it is. Which is a way of shifting the focus and the accountability off of men, and putting it onto girls and women.
That's right.
And so that's the old paradigm. The new paradigm is men's accountability, this is not really about the girl. This is about the 50-plus-year-old teacher. It's not about the girl. The girl is the victim. It's about why did this guy do this to the girl, and what are the cultural norms that help to sustain that? I mean, and by the way, the sexualization of children. And girl children and boy children, especially girl children, by adult men in the media industries and the male consumers who are consuming the sexualization of children is the larger frame here, right? It's that we live in a culture where there has been an incredible sexualization of young girls for the consumption by men, and that's the underlying reality, and it's pervasive, to be honest.
Absolutely, and we see it every day. We hear stories, and get cases
on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's run rampant at this point.
You know, Jackson, you've spoken around the world, and you're a renowned speaker. So what I want to know is, why do you think, as a society, besides men being in their peer, these multicultural groups, why do you think, as a society, we have socially, basically, is it just that we've grown accustomed to just blaming the victim? Why are we, as a society, accepting this when we know it's wrong?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think these are deep problems and deep challenges. I think there's a desensitization. I mean, in the U.S., for example, we have so much violence and so much brutality, both in the media culture that we consume for quote unquote entertainment purposes, and also on the news and in the daily log, crime log, if you will. There's just so much violence and abuse in our society. I think a lot of us have been kind of shut down and just kind of desensitized. And people often don't want to make the connection between cultural practices and consumer, culture choices people make, and on the one hand, and crimes of abuse and violence on the other. Because in other words, they want to label the perpetrators as just sick, twisted, sociopathic individuals who are somehow, as I said in my TED Talk, crawling out of the ooze and doing their nasty business, as opposed to they're products of our society, right? The men and boys who are acting out in these ways are products of our culture, of the socialization of our society, and so that implicates, all the various institutions. It implicates, the family structures and parenting techniques and ideologies behind that, and religious belief systems and media systems and the pornography culture and the sports culture. All of this has to really be, we have to think, okay, what are we teaching our sons and what are we teaching our daughters? And how does that teaching on a macro level contribute to the perpetration on the micro level by individuals? And it's not just, like I said, it's naive to think that we're just going to run from one individual to the next and say, why did this guy just kill his whole family? Why did that guy rape his friend? Why did that group of guys just gang rape their fellow soldier? Just run from one case to the next as if they're not all connected, and as if it's not. This is not a product of a cultural belief system, and that gets people very uncomfortable. People are uncomfortable with looking at a deeper level at the way that the various institutions of the society contribute to these problems. They'd much rather isolate it to individuals who are sick. And it's that way you can, kind of distance yourself from it. I mean, I do think most men are not abusive or violent, but I do think a lot of men do participate in parts of the culture that contribute to a culture of violence and that do contribute to a culture of perpetration. I have no doubt about that. Look at all the men, and a lot of guys will get really defensive if you start pointing this out. They'll say, like, "Oh, I can go to Hooters and I don't rape women, and I can consume this pornography, and I know some of it's brutal, but I'm not brutal, and I know it's not real, it's a fantasy. I can, who are you to tell me that I can't do this? You some kind of a censor? You some kind of what do you call it? A repressive, fascistic person? I mean, that level of defensiveness comes up from men when you start broadening out the conversation to these kind of cultural norms that sustain these abusive behaviors.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a tribal type of mentality.
Right.
I mean, it really is. You just stay with it, even if you don't want to. It seems to be that men who are even onlookers of the abuse, they're not going to turn on their buddy, their brother. What do we do to change that? To push them to say, it's not right. You get them in a room alone, and I mean, there's been men that are in tears saying, I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to do that. I wouldn't have done that. I didn't touch her. But we've got the Steubenvilles, and we've got these gang rapes. No, they didn't touch her, but they were there. They were just as much responsible. And they didn't want to, but they didn't have
Right, well, I think...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah. I think men are. I mean, to use a to say it provocatively, I think men are afraid of each other. I think men, and they're not just physically afraid of each other. I think some men are literally physically afraid of other men. I mean, and of not going along with the group, if you will. And some men, get policed back into conformity very quickly if they deviate from group norms. And I want to say group norms. I don't just mean 16-year-old boys in a high school. I mean, this is, even 55-year-old, corporate executives have group norms and certain standards that are considered, acceptable, not acceptable, manly, not manly, and there might be some variation between a 55-year-old corporate exec and a 17-year-old gang banger, but there's still pressures on men and young men to be conforming to certain kind of group norms. But I think men are also not just physically afraid of each other if they challenge each other or they interrupt each other's enactment of abusive behavior. I think there's a lot of social anxiety, in other words, status anxiety, and things like I'm going to be seen as not one of the guys. I'm going to be seen as soft. I'm going to be seen as weak. I'm going to be seen as taking the side of women against men in the battle between the sexes and all this kind of nonsense that you hear about.
Exactly.
Like as if there's such a thing as a battle between the sexes in the real world. Women and men. Our lives are so intertwined. The idea that it's like men against women is such a ridiculous and simplistic understanding of the human condition. But people use that term all the time.
Yes.
Are you going to take a side of women against men? And you're not a real man. And I get called names like that. Beta. Like as opposed to alpha. I get called mangina. I could call these kind of names like that are trying to put me down, like saying that I'm not a real man, because all I'm saying is men need to start standing up and speaking out about this. And the weird thing, I think one of the ways we need to change all of this, and it's a huge cultural shift that has to happen. It's not just one thing, it's a lot, but we need to define strength in men differently. I mean, we need to say that the man who challenges his fellow men around their sexist behavior, the 14-year-old boy who says to his guy friend who's made a sexist comment, hey dude, you just made a sexist comment, that's not okay with me. That takes much more strength than just laughing along or going along with your boys.
Absolutely.
So we say that it's strong. It's a strong man that does that. It's a strong young man who takes that kind of stand, not a weak one. It's ridiculous.
That's right.
And by defining it in a positive way, it's you give some people think something to aspire to in a positive direction rather than shake your finger at them and tell them, don't do this. It's like, okay, we need more men with the courage and the strength to just start standing up and saying women and men need to be treated with respect and dignity. Adults need to treat children with respect and dignity. Period. End of sentence. And I'm going to stand for that, and I'm going to stand up, and even if you call me soft for doing so, because it's ridiculous. I'm not going to not do the right thing because you, for your own reasons, are made uncomfortable by someone standing up for justice and what is right.
That's right.
And I think adult men need to take the leadership on this. It's not, and not just at an individual level like parents. Of course, parents have an important role to play, but I mean people in positions of institutional and cultural leadership. So I think we need adult men who are principals and political leaders and business leaders and sports coaches and athletic directors and just religion. There's on and on. There's men in positions of institutional leadership and cultural authority who need to be much more active and public in our stance on these issues and supporting and standing with women, in public and in private, on every different level. And boys growing up need to see that this is what adult men do. This is what strong adult men do. And we'll begin to see a change over time. But we got to reach a critical mass of men joining with women in this effort.
That's right.
we have so many children growing
we
up.
Have a caller.
We have
I'm
a
sorry.
caller.
I thought you were going to
it's
say
okay.
we have a caller.
We have a caller.
We have a
Caller, are you there?
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so happy that I got through. I just wanted to call in and commemorate you, Mr. Katz, for everything that you're doing, and also the National Safe Child Show. It's amazing. I just wanted to commemorate Senator Bell, and I am just so grateful for everything that all of you advocates are doing. I am personally a parent that my child has experienced child sexual abuse, and I'm just very, very grateful for everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Very, very grateful.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that you're listening.
Yes, and anytime that anybody, male or female, stands up for the human rights of another person it's just a wonderful, beautiful thing. I just wanted to just personally say that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. I was going to say, we have children that live, in a world of adversity. You have your inner city kids, and the fact that they can have role models like Jackson. We need more men like him. I really, really admire him. I really admire you, Jackson, for the work that you're doing. And anybody that calls you a mangina, I'm sorry, they just don't know what they're talking about.
Well,
this is a real man here.
Exactly.
Real
They're afraid.
Man. They're afraid.
Men that get afraid, they immediately lash out.
Exactly.
And they try to belittle the strong man. I have seen it with some really strong men that I've had.
And then the little men, too. You call it what? Little man syndrome? That really, really try to stand up.
Okay, so we're going to... Yeah. Do we have another caller?
Okay, so we're going to... Yes.
Hi. Hi, caller. Do you have a...
Can you turn down the volume on your radio, please?
Sure. Can you turn down the volume on your radio? Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, welcome. Did you have a question for Jackson?
I did. This is Karen Ellis. Hi, Jackson.
Wonderful.
I have so much respect for you. I saw the TED Talk and was just blown away by the ability for you to reach so many people with such an important message. But my question for you is, one thing that I have noticed is that, so many people have such an incredibly hard time recognizing a man who is a pedophile. This is something that's personal to me, so I'm really focused on the sexual abuse of children. But, I just think, the pedophiles are so great at having a great outer appearance. And then when they go behind closed doors, they do these horrible things. So people don't want to out them. They are so convincing that they are wonderful people that people don't want to take that and say, but we know the truth. How can we overcome that?
Thank you. It's a really good question. I think part of the challenge there is that so many of these perpetrators are not, as I said earlier, they're not the monster in the public imagination that people think they are. They're normal. A lot of them are normal guys in every other respect, right? And if they have, look at some of the scandals that have happened, as you know, over the past 20 years with male religious leaders and
Absolutely.
And other football, the Jerry Sandusky, the football coach at Penn State.
No,
these are prominent people that people have fond feelings for because they have they have other qualities. They're not just one-dimensional ogres, right? They have other qualities that they do positive work in the world, and they have friends a lot, whatever. So I think it really shakes people up to think that the person that they respect, a man that they love, even they love, is capable of doing these things is very discomforting to people, and so denial goes into effect, right? So denial, like, oh no, this could not be, because the person I know would never do something like that, right? Because they're thinking the person who could do something like that is like some monster. It's like some Freddy Krueger, like literally a non-human actor, as opposed to a damaged human being who's damaging other human beings. And I think this is what we're fighting against. The denial is very deep, and the victim blaming comes out of that denial because it's the low-hanging fruit is victim blaming, right? In other words, instead of looking at your friend or a person you respect and saying, "Oh my God, that person has done that. That's horrible. I can't believe that," which then it prompts a level of introspection, like maybe it's something about us as a culture. Maybe I'm part of the problem because I'm on this team with this guy, or I respect this person, and he did this, and does that mean that I'm somehow implicated? Not criminally, but like in an ethical sense. Am I perhaps implicated? By the way, this is also true of in sports. When sports figures or music stars are alleged to have perpetrated some sort of sexual violence, that you have this knee-jerk defense of them, and part even though sometimes the evidence is overwhelming, because people don't want to believe that their beloved player or their beloved artist that they love, listening to his music, is capable of these things, because they're, in a sense, complicit in making him famous or sustaining his popularity, and they don't want to think about, like, oh my God, maybe if I'm cheering this guy on, I'm cheering on a rapist, which means that I'm helping to be perpetuating a culture of victimization. I don't want to think about myself like that. It's much easier in the face of all that to say, you know what, she's just probably making it up, or she's exaggerating. I know he's not the greatest guy in the world sometimes, maybe he's got some issues, but there's no way he did that, and she's got some ulterior motive.
Yes.
And that's just, it's the low-hanging fruit. It's easy to do that because the other choice, which is accountability, it comes with lots of sacrifices. Like, for example, I can't cheer for this person anymore. I can't go to Pittsburgh Steelers football game anymore and cheer for Ben Roethlisberger, the quarterback,
That's right.
because, he has, two different women alleged with significant evidence, although it was never prosecuted successfully, that, he'd been charged with sexual assault in two different cases. Remember that? I mean, but look at all the Pittsburgh Steelers fans that continue to go to Pittsburgh Steelers games and cheer on their quarterback.
Absolutely, because we've minimized rape. We have minimized molestation. We've minimized it and swept it under the carpet for so long that people don't really look at it as this serious pandemic. It's worldwide here, that it really is. Karen, are you still with us?
The worst part, too, is when you see it carried over to the children, these young children that are the victims. I know children that have reported to police, courts, judges, lawyers, CPS, over and over and over and over, and yet these children are then taken and put with their rapist. I mean, if we ever saw that on the news of a woman who is raped by some random man and then she is forced to go live with him, we would be horrified. But we do it to our own children daily.
Yes.
You're right.
I can't comprehend how this continues to go on.
Yeah, I hear you, and again, it's judges and people in the judicial system and the legal system and the law enforcement world are products of the same culture. You know what I mean? As all of us are. You know what
That's
I mean?
right.
So their attitudes and beliefs affect how they do their job. So until we change the cultural attitudes and beliefs about some of these issues, we're not going to successfully change different parts of the system. I mean, obviously there's need for reforming different practices in legal terms and in the courtroom and how cases are handled. But until we change some of these larger cultural belief systems, what we're going to see is it's going to be playing out in the legal system in these ways.
Absolutely.
Right, and I'm going to hang up now, but I have one last question, which is very broad and I know hard to answer. But do you see the light? Is it possible for people to change in society this extremely? I mean, what we're requesting is monumental. Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I think I appreciate that. It is a big question. I think one really promising thing is I think we just need more women in positions of institutional, political, cultural leadership.
And I'm behind you.
I think that's the single most important thing that can happen. I know, and I think there's lots of good male leaders, but I just think we need a lot more women. And even when with recently what's been happening with the United States military and the sexual assault pandemic in the U.S. military, the Senate Armed Services Committee, the United States Senate Armed Services Committee has, I believe, 7 women senators on it. This is unprecedented, and they're the ones who have taken the lead on holding the services, the various military services, accountable for dealing with these issues, this sexual assault pandemic, more upfront and more accountably. Where have been the male leaders? Men have been on the Senate Armed Services Committee since the beginning of the country,
Absolutely.
and haven't been playing anything like that role that now these women are playing. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that's because they're women who are more concerned and less policed into silence than men are around these issues, and they're strong leaders and strong women, and things are happening as a result because they have power. And so I think we need to do we need to work towards getting more women into the judiciary, getting more women into the political system. Now, of course, that doesn't mean just because you're a woman you're going to be doing the right thing. I mean, there's obviously women who are voting the same way that men would vote in the same position, and because they have the same ideological beliefs. But I think in a general sense, women, in a multicultural sense, bringing women to the table of decision making is very hopeful, and especially around crimes against children, and because women are so much more historically and even to this day connected to the intimate lives of children. And have, generally speaking, still more responsibility for the care of children, and so that perspective, the mom's perspective, if you will, or the empathy with children. And again, I think there's plenty of men, myself included, who have strong empathy with children and connection with children. But
absolutely,
in a general sense, I think women's voices are much more needed.
It's a maternal voice,
right?
We're made to provide two different important components to the child. So we come with the maternal, the empathetic, not to say that men don't have the empathy too. I mean, I have two brothers who are great dads. I mean, honestly, they're wonderful dads. I sometimes think, I know a lot of great fathers and I know a lot of great mothers, and they both bring something really important to the child. It still doesn't negate the fact that child sexual abuse predominantly committed by men. Is it the man in the trench coat that looks like the sly guy? No. It's the man that's the soccer coach. He's volunteering. He's the on the church choir. He's the pillar in the community. He looks great. He's the best neighbor. He's the cookout guy.
Right.
We need to take away that it's not the African American socioeconomically disadvantaged family that just didn't have any education. They don't know better, and this is pretty much all they have.
In my case, my abuser, he was the fun uncle, the one that everybody loved to be around. He was the one that was at every barbecue. And it goes to show you that they know how, they're great at manipulating. They're amazing at manipulating a child, and it's always the ones that you least expect. So I just commend you. And, I'm going online and I'm looking at the chat roll. And one of the questions, Jackson, was, can you please ask Mr. Jackson, what motivated you? Basically, what motivated you to do what you do?
To be where you are.
To be so courageous and just...
To be the leader.
Yes.
The leader of... I think one of the few, I know a couple of other men who have taken this stand, but it's more in a university. Right. You're doing it just across the board.
Internationally.
They focus more on just men, where you're focusing on the big picture, which is what, it's not just men. It's not just one component. It is the children. It is the sexual abuse. They are all intertwined, like you said earlier.
What motivates you, Jackson?
What brought you here?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I've been doing my work for a long time now, since I was about 18 or 19 years old, as a young college student, when I became first aware of just how big a problem both men's violence against women was, and sexism more generally, and honestly racism and other forms of, and heterosexism. When I just got to college as a young guy, I was like, my mind was opened very quickly, like, to how big, how enormous these problems were in the world, and how people who, just because they happen to be born female or gay or person of color, was disadvantaged as a result, or discriminated against, or mistreated, and I knew how. I mean, I got viscerally early on that was completely wrong and unfair. And I'm.
Were
and
you
as a
bullied?
man, I knew that I was in a position to do something about it, and I was a pretty self-confident young guy, and I was a big, accomplished football player and three-sport, varsity athlete in my hometown, and so I was right in the center of sort of male power, if you will, as a young guy.
Yeah.
And so I was not intimidated in the slightest by because I'd been behind the curtain, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
I wasn't intimidated by, you know, the way that men presented themselves as strong or tough or whatever. To me, I could see that it was a bit of an act.
Right.
And so when I started learning just how pervasive these problems were and the violence was in the world, I knew that I was in a position to do something about it. And I looked around and I thought, well, okay, I see women standing up for themselves and other women and men. I mean, women standing up for men and women. But where are the men? I mean, why aren't men doing this? And I got that pretty early on, that there was a big disconnect between the fact that men are committing the vast majority of violence, but the people speaking out about it were mostly women. And I thought, okay, it makes sense. I learned well. I think I got a really good education that the responsibility of people who have certain privileges is to work against injustice and unfair privilege, and I started, you know, just speaking out. And then, of course, when I started speaking out, I got people coming up to me, you know, women, and I started realizing how much more common this stuff was in the world, and then men too. I mean, you know, because again, from the beginning, my work has been about not just men's violence against women, but men's violence against other men.
Right.
And you know, whether it's murder, attempted murder, assault, aggravated assault, gay bashing, bullying, men are the primary victims of all these crimes, as well as the primary perpetrators.
Right.
So it's not just like helping women; it's helping men. It's
Yes.
and I see how much self-destructive behavior men engage in, not just hurting others, but hurting themselves and hurting ourselves. And you know, there's more to it, but I mean
Right.
that's part of what propelled me forward. And then, you know, to me, there's nothing more important than that somebody could be doing, not just what I'm doing, but I mean, working towards creating more fair, healthier and less violent, world community. I mean, it seems obvious.
You're the model. You're the model for men. I want to tell our listeners right now how they can contact you, because we're getting a lot of response here. How can we reach out to him? So can you give the information that you want to give to the listeners? An email or whatever you'd like to give. Okay.
Well, my website is a good place to go, and
Yes.
there's an email link there, but it's Jackson Katz, JacksonKatz, which is just my name, JacksonKatz.com.
Yes.
So if you want to go to my website, you can get some information, and there's an email link as well if you want to go further.
Excellent.
And then I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about your book, The
Yeah.
Macho Paradox.
I definitely want to. I want to ask.
I like the title.
Me too. I know we're going to end with that, but I want to ask one question first before we veer off a bit. The worst case that you've ever heard of that was brought to you, just like Jackson, check this out. What the hell is going on? What do you think? What would you say it is, or it was?
You mean an individual case?
Yeah, an individual case.
Or-
Individual case that people, our listeners, can really say, holy, you know what? This is unbelievable. How the hell is this stuff happening? Because the common people, I will tell you, even though we, being in this profession, hear about this every day, this is common. This is an everyday thing to me. It's not uncommon. The common people have their mouth, the jaw dropping when we talk about cases to them. They can't believe that this is even existent in this industrialized country. Do you get that? And what's the worst case?
Well, I don't know what. I honestly wouldn't know what the worst case is. I deal with so many. I mean, when I say deal with, I'm more of an educator and a theorist and all that, as opposed to somebody who's like whether involved legally or whatever with cases. But I see them every day, or not every day, but almost on a regular basis. Like these when men kill their wives and then they kill their whole families, and that happens so regularly in this country. It seems like that these rampage killings that these men engage in, and killing their whole 5 members of their family. It seems like such a common experience, and those are the ones that, especially when children are involved, but not just when children are involved, but it are the ones that are some of the ones that you just want to turn away from, because it's so horrific. Because you think, oh my God, these children were in this situation for how many months or years, and then it ended this way, and couldn't we have done something the system have intervened, at some point much sooner than this sad tragedy?
Right.
So when children are involved, recently there was a case here in Southern California. Again, these cases happen all the time, but a 6-year-old girl was murdered at a party. She just got to this party with her father at a it was a family reunion. She was in the driveway. They were just like walking up the driveway, and some guy comes by and starts shooting, and a bullet hits her, and she's dead.
Yes.
She's 6 years old. And it turns out my wife is my wife's student was the mother of this girl.
Oh God,
and
I'm so sorry.
My wife's a college professor, and the young woman, the mother, just graduated this past May from college. Big accomplishment for her. Her 6-year-old daughter murdered by this idiot. I'm sorry, I don't know the person, but
an idiot,
and
a
monster.
More than an idiot, and we can say whatever we want because
this is web radio.
Yeah, this is we can say what we
want. I appreciate that, but and this is the same the culture that produces. He's a 20 right now. There was somebody arrested for the crime and charged with it. There's been no trial yet. This all happened a month ago, but. This 21-year-old is a product of this culture. The 21-year-old if he's guilty of the crime of murder of a 6-year-old girl, he's a product of our culture. Our culture put the gun in his hand, if you will, and the ideology of manhood in his psyche, and this happens daily around the country. Again, we could run from one case to the next and say what happened here and this is horrific there, but it's like these are cultural problems that are much deeper than individuals. And again, a lot of the men who commit these crimes, as the both of you know better than I, a lot of the men who commit these crimes are themselves damaged people who are just playing out their damage by damaging other people. And the big difference between men and women in this regard is that women who have been abused are much more likely to become self-abusive. Men who have been abused are much more likely to abuse others. And that's not a genetic difference between the male and the female. That's a cultural learning. That's a cultural teaching difference.
That's
so
absolutely right.
That one way to deal with our pain and our lack or longing or sadness or vulnerability or weakness, whatever, is to take it out on other people, whereas we teach girls and women to take it out on themselves. And that's one of the reasons why so much of the bad behavior is done by men who are damaged themselves.
That's absolutely right. Let's talk about your book because we're going to run out of time, and I wish we weren't. Let's talk about your book.
Sure. Well, the Macho Paradox is just a book-length discussion about violence against women as a men's issue. I'm basically running through the whole book, the argument that we need to shift in our paradigm. We need to start thinking, instead of thinking these are women's issues, domestic and sexual violence, sexual abuse, those are women's issues that some good men help out with. My argument is they're really men's issues, and that we really need to turn the cultural sort of spotlight around onto men. And I highlight examples in positive ways of men doing that kind of work. I highlight women's voices who have been engaged in this work for a long time, and their challenges and struggles working with men and trying to bring men in. I talk about parents, the role of parents, especially the parents of sons, because we so often talk about, we need to train our daughters to protect themselves or to avoid situations of risk, which is a good thing, but we don't as much put as much emphasis on the parents of sons to teach them to be to be men of courage and integrity who will speak up and challenge other men, and not just in themselves refrain from being abusive, but they need to speak up when they see their friends acting out. And that's part of the role of a good parenting, especially in this case fathers, because it's not just mothers who should have the burden of teaching their sons to be treating women with respect. Of course, their fathers and other men, because not everybody has fathers, but other men have to be engaged in this process. And I talk about my work and my colleagues' work in the sports culture, the military, and a whole range of other educational and other settings. So if anybody's interested in thinking more broadly and more deeply about men's engagement with these issues, Macho Paradox, I think, is a good introduction.
And where can they find your book? Is it on sale now?
Well, on Amazon. Amazon is the easiest way. Just Macho Paradox at Amazon.com.
Leading Men, Presidential Campaigns, and the Politics of Manhood.
Yeah, that's my second book.
Yeah.
Came out about a little less than a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's, I know we don't have the time to get into it, but that's a whole discussion about the U.S. presidency as basically a national, a quadrennial referendum. Every 4 years is a referendum on the state of manhood in the United States. But what voters are voting for is up until now, one or another version of men's leadership. And because the president embodies he's not just the executive of the country.
Right.
He sort of embodies the national identity, which is another way of saying he embodies the national manhood, because the identity of the United States is so masculine. And the White House is literally the home of the country in a symbolic sense.
Yes.
And the president, who's a man, is the father. He's the head of the household, the White House, which is the national, sort of symbol of America and American manhood. And so what I'm basically arguing in the book, Leading Men, is that the gender subtext is critical to understanding American politics, but no one talks about it other than when a woman is running. So gender becomes a conversation piece when a woman is running. But what my argument is that gender is always a central piece, but the gender is men, which because men are the dominant group, it's hidden and invisible. And so part of what this book Leading Men does is makes visible that this is really about a big and important element of what people are choosing when they choose a president has to do with manliness and what we define as qualities that we respect in men. So there it is. There's a lot more to it.
Wow.
Wow.
We love where you're going.
Yes.
We so
need you back.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Please. Yeah, I'll be.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing your show. It sounds like a great intervention that you're doing on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. One more time, it's JacksonKatz.com. He is the leader. Jackson, is there anything, we've got another minute, any classes, any universities that you're speaking of at in the future, any workshops that you're looking to have, maybe that people that are listening now can say, you know what, I want to send my teenager. He's not going to the school where you're speaking, but he needs to hear you. He needs another man's voice to tell him these important things. Anything yet?
Well, sure. The only caveat is on my website I have a schedule.
Okay.
But it needs to be updated. So if
Okay.
people went to it now, they wouldn't see the future; they'd see the past.
I got you.
In terms of the schedule. But that's a good place to go if anybody's interested in my public presentations or trainings. My website schedule has a good indication of where I'm going to be. I do a great deal of traveling and
Yes.
speaking.
Yes.
Both on college campuses, but also in communities and other places. So thanks for that.
When you're
JacksonKatz.com will be good.
Yeah, absolutely. When your schedule clears, we hope that you can actually make it into the studio next time. We know you when you come back on.
Promise us that you will come into the studio.
Yeah. And when you come back on, we know
Well,
that.
Yes.
I can't. I don't want to be overly ambitious, but I'd like to if we can make it happen.
We will.
We will.
We're
Definitely.
manifestors
Right.
over here, and you're a doer, so it's going to happen.
All right.
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jackson.
so much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
All
You
right.
too.
Thank you.
Both.
Take care.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you to all of our fans and our listeners for
Yeah.
supporting the National Safe Child Show.
Yes.
And today I want to dedicate this show to little John Benet Ramsey. I'm sure everyone is aware. And may one day you find justice.
Yes. Thank you so much, listeners, and thank you,
you.
Jackson Katz.
Thank you for listening to the National Safe Child Show on UBN Radio. For past episodes, visit the archives on ubnradio.com. And for more information, go to nationalsafechildcoalition.com.
Hey, this is Robert Hensley, and you're listening to UBN Radio. Don't miss my new show, Face Value. It's all about celebrity makeup, skincare, and uncovering the truth of how we can look and feel younger. Every Friday, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UBN Radio starting October 4th. Listen, laugh, learn, increase your face value.